Hi, everyone. I am so thrilled and honored to be joined today by California Attorney General and longtime AABA member Rob Bonta. AG Bonta is California's first Filipino American to hold this important office and the second AAPI individual to be Attorney General for our state. Throughout his career, AG Bonta has been such a strong supporter of the AAPI legal community, including AABA. He has been a frequent speaker on AABA panels, a mentor to so many AABA attorneys, and in 2015 was recognized with NAPABA's prestigious Trailblazer Award. AG Bonta, thank you so much for your contributions to AABA and the AAPI community. We are so privileged to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm honored to be here.
So, AG Bonta, you have such an inspiring story. You were born in the Philippines and immigrated to the United States as an infant with your family, shortly after President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law. Could you share with us a little bit about how your journey as a child of immigrants has shaped your path?
Yes, that's my story is very similar to that of many other Californians, Americans who came to this state and this country to seek opportunity and a better life. And my mom is an immigrant from the Philippines. She was um, raised in Dumaguete in the Visayas and the islands, and then later went to the main island of Luzon and went to UP Diliman and came to California and America for the first time when she was 28 years old after a 3-week ship ride and set foot on soil here in California for the first time in her life and went to graduate school in Berkeley, met my father, and they got married and went to the Philippines. And my sister was born, and I was born there. And they were working with faith-based leaders to raise people up in the Philippines who are facing struggle, demonstrating their lifetime commitment to service. And Ferdinand Marcos began rising to power, and he later declared martial law. He had a dictatorship marred by human rights abuses. And as he rose to power, my parents decided to bring me and my sister to California to rebuild our lives. And, that experience of leaving one country to find opportunity in another, trying to leave behind a corrupt government or a abusive or exploitive government to be part of a democracy is a common thread in what makes us California and what makes us America. And my parents came here to continue to serve and work for the United Farm Workers of America, and that was part of my experience growing up as well. But it has impacted how I view immigration policy, the immigration experience. I have long been and tried to be a champion for our immigrant communities throughout the state, throughout the nation, to fight for, defend, and protect them, especially over the last the years 2016 to 2020, when they were under full frontal assault from, in my view, from the federal administration and from Trump. And they needed California and California's leaders to stand up and fight for who we are and who we've become. Immigrants are such a critical part of who we are and who we've become, our future. And my personal experience has always shaped that view. And lived experience matters in leadership. Your own experiences, your own struggles, the ability and the experience of overcoming obstacles helps shape your worldview. And we bring that view and our values and our experiences to our leadership. So being the son of an immigrant, immigrating myself in the Philippines as a baby has always shaped my vision, my values, and my leadership.
And AG Bonta, your career has focused on roles really giving to the public in the public service. You were in the city attorney's office here in San Francisco, Alameda City Council, and prior to becoming the Attorney General, you were a California State Assemblyman. What really inspired you to pursue such a long history and career of giving back to the public?
The legacy of my parents. They are social justice advocates and activists to the core. They're my biggest inspirations and my biggest supporters. And seeing and hearing about what they did throughout their lives inspired me to take up the baton that they left and to continue the legacy. And, my father was involved in the civil rights movement. He was a grad student in Berkeley when one of his fellow student colleagues was on the ground in Selma, Alabama, and was taking audio cassette recordings of this incredible leader who was talking about a more equal society and a more just America. And he would send these audio cassettes by US mail to my father across the country in Berkeley, where my father would promptly, eagerly awaiting them, receive the package, tear it open, pull out the cassette tape and put it into a cassette player and listen. And he was listening to the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. And he felt a call by that voice, by those words, to be in Selma and to join the fight. And he went. He jumped on a train and Amtrak for over 3 days so he could be in Selma, so he could be on the ground where he organized for civil rights, organized for voting rights. He was with Martin Luther King Jr. in church. He met Stokely Carmichael, and he was part of one of the greatest civil rights movements in the history of our nation. I mentioned earlier that my parents worked for the United Farm Workers of America. They first started by collecting signatures outside of supermarkets in Southern California as part of the lettuce boycott. They were then invited to go to the headquarters of La Paz in the Central Valley outside of Bakersfield. And there, my brother, younger brother, my older sister, my mom and dad, we all lived in a trailer a stone's throw away from the home of Cesar Chavez. My parents were each paid $10 a week for their service to the movement. My dad worked in the front office with Cesar Chavez. My mom worked in the preschool. She worked with Dolores Huerta. We hosted the great Filipino American leader who isn't talked about enough, Philip Vera Cruz, in our trailer for Filipino breakfast when he would come to La Paz for meetings with the UFW leadership. And my mom, we mentioned that martial law was declared shortly after I was born. It was actually declared exactly a year after I was born. And so for my early years, for my birthday, my mom would throw a birthday party for me, and then she'd organize a protest. And that was the household I grew up in. The struggle never ended. The fight for justice continued. And my parents deeply believed and showed me and made me believe that everyday people committed to a common cause can change the world. And that an injustice against one is a injustice against all. And when something's not right, it's time to fight. And so that was instilled in me from a young age. That's the household I grew up in. And my mom believed that they could topple a dictatorship across the ocean with organizing and everyday people leaning in and elbow grease and big hearts that are fighting. And they did. They were part of the restoration of democracy in the Philippines in 1986 with the People Power Revolution. So those lessons were with me my entire life. As a young child, you don't appreciate every aspect of them as much as you do as you get older and have time for reflection and see them in historical context and the incredible movements that my parents were part of. But I saw them ask people with suits, with titles, with positional power and authority to do things that would help the people that they were fighting for. Voiceless communities, vulnerable communities. And sometimes those people with titles and suits did help them, and sometimes they didn't. And I felt with everything my parents gave me, an incredible California public school education. They made me believe I could go to college. They made me believe in my dream to go to law school, that maybe in the next generation, if I took the baton from them and tried to continue to fight for the legacy, then maybe I could be one of those people with that authority, with one of those titles, an elected official who could be in the room when decisions were made, have a seat at the table, and bring those communities that had long been forgotten and overlooked with me, in my heart and with my values and reflected in the decisions that I made. And that's what I've tried to do as a public servant. In the assembly, certainly now as the attorney general, which I see as the people's attorney to fight for everyday people, especially those who have been abused and harmed and hurt, to always remember the most vulnerable in our community and be their champion.
That's very inspiring and just shows how much commitment you have to fight for the greater good and for justice. One of our priorities for AABA is increasing the number of AAPI individuals in elected office and in public service leadership positions. Do you have any advice for AABA members who are thinking about running for office or getting involved in leadership positions?
Absolutely. One, if you're thinking about it, I encourage you to uh, pursue it, to go with your heart, to be your authentic self, and to take a chance. It's never comfortable stepping out into the public sphere. It wasn't for me. I hand wrung about it forever. I was worried about losing, the privacy for me and my family. I was wondering if it would be effective. I had heard all the stories about governments that are corrupt and gridlocked. And at some point, I said, let's just see. I have to try. And being an attorney, I will say, is a huge advantage in public service. The training that we receive, the way we're taught to think, being able to process large amounts of information and distill it to its key parts, and for oral advocacy and written advocacy, and analysis, and critical thinking, and just understanding how our system and society works, is all hugely advantageous in public service. And so I'll say, for those who are thinking about it, you're more ready than you think. And bring your authentic self, your heart and your values to the work. And if it's something that you want to do, then you're going to be great at it, because we've all had jobs where there are good parts and they're not so good parts. And if you're doing the thing that you love, it won't feel like work, and you'll excel at it, and you'll be successful. I also highly recommend, being as prepared as possible. I think that when you decide to serve, and you're running for an election, for a seat in an election, for a seat, that you should be running to win. Sometimes people say, I'm just running to get my name out there, or I just want to see. I don't recommend that. People want to see a serious candidate with fire in the belly, who's prepared to lead on day one. And so that takes preparation and thinking. But AABA and our API legal community is full of leaders that are ready now. There's nothing else you need to do except decide to do it. Full of talent, I'm proud to say, and ready to lead now. So if you're thinking about it, I encourage you to do it, and I'd be happy to assist. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you. I hope we get inspiration for our members to get involved in public service. Thank you so much. Now, AG Bonta, you are California's top law enforcement officer. Why is it important for our state and our nation to have diversity at this level in law enforcement?
I think it's important to have diversity at every level, and including law enforcement. But representation matters. I think it brings different perspective, different lived experiences, different viewpoints, which help us be our best selves as a community. And so if you have limited viewpoints and perspectives and lived experiences, you're going to have a limited type of leadership, and you'll have uh, uh, blind spots in areas where we're not doing as well as we can. So our diversity is our strength. We don't just tolerate diversity here in California. We celebrate it. We know it's something that makes us stronger and makes us better. So it's so important to have that diversity in our highest leadership positions. I'll also say that for folks who are dreaming about who they want to be and what they can become, many don't think they can be certain things because there's never been someone who looks like them in those positions. It's even though there's might not be a a hard and fast prohibition against an API serving in a certain role. If they're not there and you don't see them, you don't think it can be true. And so there's huge trailblazing and pioneering and glass ceiling breaking when people serve in these roles for the first time, and then it opens up a world of opportunity and possibility for the next generation. So I always say to our API community and believe that we need to take our rightful seats at all tables of influence and power that there are, whether it be public service or corporate boardrooms or nonprofit leadership. Whatever the leadership is, we deserve to be there. We should be there. And right now, for the Attorney General's position, I see it as the people's attorney in this moment of anti-API hate violence and hate crimes. I think it's so important that we have an API leader here, someone who can say what I say to the API community, which is, I see you, I value you, I am you, and I will have your back and support you and fight by your side against the forces of hate. I know how many API community members leaders have felt the sting of hate over the many years. I've felt it personally. It's not something I theorize about. It's something I know all too well. And the full state of emergency that we're in and state of crisis that we're in, I understand the urgency of now and to act and to be the ally and champion and supporter of the API community that the API community deserves.
We're really inspired and comforted by your leadership, AG Bonta, especially on this topic, which has been front of mind, unfortunately, for AABA and the AAPI community around the country. Your office recently released a report on anti-Asian crimes, which said, saw a 107% increase in anti-Asian incidents in 2020, which is really terrible. Would you be able to share with us some thoughts on what you think your office can do and what AABA members can do to stop this disturbing rise?
Absolutely. We've seen the rise during COVID in particular. Much of it, in my view, fueled by um, our the former occupant of the White House who had the biggest bullhorn on the planet and used it to push out, unfortunately, messages of hate and racism, of xenophobia, and that had real life consequences on API community members throughout this nation and throughout this state. And it gave permission and license to folks to hurt and harm API community members, and I think we can do better and we deserve better. And we've seen, and many of us have felt either through our own experiences or our fears and concerns and worries about our loved ones, the fact that our lolos and lolas, our aunties and uncles and mothers and fathers can't do everyday things, go for a walk, go shopping, ride public transportation without fear of being attacked or targeted or hurt. And that should never be the case. And that's an unacceptable state of affairs. And so we need to have all communities, not just the API community, but all communities condemning and calling out such unacceptable actions, because we can't accept the unacceptable, but we also need to take action. And I've seen that. I've seen that allyship, that solidarity, that support from other communities, and I've seen our powerful API community standing up and being resilient and strong in the face of these attacks. And so I want to do my role. And part of my role as Attorney General is to make sure we're using the tools that we have to their fullest capacity. We know, for example, that law enforcement doesn't always identify or investigate hate crimes as such, and they can and they should with the right tools and training. So we submitted and shared a bulletin with law enforcement that will help them better investigate and better identify hate crimes. We also know that the victims and survivors of hate crimes need more support in language, culturally competent, trauma informed, restorative. And a lot of our community-based organizations are on the front lines providing that type of support and have earned the trust of the API community. So supporting those community-based organizations that provide that incredible support is important. Investing in the prevention from happening, the hate crimes, from having hate crimes occur in the first place is really critical. We've seen communities lift themselves up and have community patrols to put more eyeballs and bodies on the street to make sure that our most vulnerable community members are safer. And we've seen folks who have accompanied and chaperoned our seniors in our API communities. That that is worthy of support and investment and partnership. So working with law enforcement and community to provide the best supports throughout the whole range, from prevention in the first place to accountability when a hate crime occurs, to healing for victims and survivors, to provide the whole range is going to be critical in this moment. And those are areas that the Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office are all working on.
Well, thank you for using your important office to support a community in this really, really critical thing that we're all facing together. So tonight's gala is celebrating 45 years of AABA, elevating and empowering its members. I wanted to close our conversation by asking you, AG Bonta, why ABBA is important to you, and if you have any words to our ABBA members about why they should get involved with us.
Absolutely. I and so many of us stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us. We're in the world that we're in with the opportunities that we have because others have broken down barriers and kicked down doors and allowed us to walk through. And we need to do the same for those who come behind us. We never do this alone. We're always doing it as part of a broader community. As Michelle Obama famously said, when you kick down a door of opportunity, it's not just your responsibility to walk through it. You should also be reaching back and pulling others through with you. And ABBA has done that for years, for decades, creating opportunity, providing mentorship, fighting for our community's representation in all areas of the law and in the community, whether it be representation in partnerships or as judges. We're not just worker bees as APIs, as is too often thought of. We are executive leaders and deserve to have those executive leadership positions. The training to be successful, as young attorneys has been critical. The discussions about the most important issues of our day that ABBA has led to inform and to share best practices for how we can be the best advocates for our communities. And the commitment to making everyday people's lives better and are making our communities stronger has been a value that ABBA has shown for many years. So I appreciate that the community that's been built, in ABBA over a long period of time, the confidence and the opportunities that have been provided to young attorneys when we're young. There's nothing that can be more helpful than a supportive, caring mentor to show us the way when we're not sure and when we're confused and when we want to do well but don't know how. And ABBA has provided that too as well. I've always loved the sort of multi-generational component of it and the handing down of wisdom and knowledge and mentorship has been a critical part as well. So I just want to appreciate ABBA for all it's done for me personally, for every API attorney that it's touched, for every community member whose life it's uplifted, and for the ongoing service to our great state and to our communities throughout our state that it's provided.
Well, thank you for being such an inspirational leader, for using all of your talents to advance justice and support the AAPI community, and for being such a strong supporter of ABBA. We are so privileged to have you as one of our members and one of our role models. We really appreciate all of the time you took today to speak with us. I know our members are delighted to hear from you and to see you in this prestigious role as our Attorney General. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michelle. It's an honor and privilege of a lifetime to be in this role as Attorney General and an honor to be with you today. Thank you, ABBA, once again for all you do.